So please hit that like button if you're enjoying these conversational style recaps. It really helps the channel. With the gang all here, it looks like there's going to be a lot going on in this event.
That's because the mastermind behind this is Narendra Nehru. His men informed him that a variable had come up at the auction house. The S-ranker of New South Korea Association is at the auction house. They asked what they should do about it. Nehru remained silent. He asked what was the matter with a lowly trash like that when he's present. And as long as he's there, he declares that no one can evade divine revelation. The scene then shifted towards this view of a twin building. And then, all of a sudden, the tall building was bombed. Inside that building, an auction with many people is ongoing. Half of the room was reduced to ashes because of the bombing. People who were relaxed were suddenly being blown away. Jeon-won immediately went to Taehyun's side. He checked if Taehyun is okay, and he urged him to evacuate at once. Taehyun was in a state of shock. He knew a terror attack would happen, but he had no idea that they would bomb all throughout the structure. He wondered how the terrorists were able to sneak in, and even the time frame on when the bombs were installed. He tried to remain calm and focused on what's important. The terrorists showed themselves. One terrorist instills fear by gunning the ceiling and commanding the people to lower their weapons and give them the money and valuables that people owned. He threatened them that if they resisted, he would shoot them in the head. But he was cut mid-sentence, and the next thing he knew, his head was no longer attached to his body. And Taehyun was the cause of that. Jeon-won was shot. Kim Taehyun instructed him to inform the association of the situation and request for reinforcements. With a serious expression, Taehyun vowed to catch the person behind the incident. On a different side of the building, the guards hold the fort even with their injuries. The leader of this group told the terrorists that the articles had been bid on already, and they're not for terrorists like them. The leader of that group told his team to slaughter them all. They engaged in a bloody fight and killed all the guards. With the path being cleared, he chose a container with a cap of the head of a phoenix, and it was what he had been aiming for. It was the Phoenix Potion, a unique item. It permanently increases stamina and mana by 20 points each when consumed. Upon holding that potion, he now understood why Nehru told them to get it, even if it meant putting their lives at stake. He sensed tremendous energy from it just by looking at it. He started to think of drinking that potion. But before he could do anything, an explosion happened that surprised him. It left one of his members dead. He was surprised and confused. Other members reported that there's an enemy, but they're confused because they can't see anything. The next thing they know is that they're being hit. The next moment, they had lost their lives. The leader of the terrorists in that group figured out that the enemy used stealth skill, but before he could do anything, his body had already been slashed. He used his ability and metal chains appeared. The chains were deployed around the area to survey where the enemy was. The chains kept moving until it had tied a man. He was mad at the enemy for daring to act up with nothing but stealth. The tied man was impressed that the guy had a skill that can locate even an opponent who uses stealth. It was Kim Taehyun, and he told the man that his skill would be perfect for predation. Meanwhile, on the other part of the building, several corpses of the guards lay on the ground, while several civilians had been tied up, with monsters surrounding them. At the warp gate control room, several warps are opened, and surrounding it are several armed men and huge monsters. Nehru announced that it was such a simple matter. He announced that all people would fear him, the one they proclaimed their god, even more. He thought that all was left to do was the Phoenix Potion, but a subordinate came up to him. The man reported to Nehru that they received a message from Dyke's group who went to acquire the Phoenix Potion, and he told Nehru that there was a problem. Just hearing the word problem, Nehru was displeased. The radio was noisy because of its static sounds, until they heard someone speak. This person asked if he was really that person. Nehru, he asked the person on the other line who he was. Taehyun told him that he's the one who has what Nehru wants.
Oh shit, my boy is really playing for keeps. He'd be a fool not to have taken that Phoenix Potion for himself and just placed the blame on them. With all these abilities, it's like Taehyun is in the bonus round of a game, leveling up his skills and stats. He's about to go full Reggie from Bad Boys 4 and go straight ham.
It's true, since he is holding the Phoenix Potion. He told Nehru that if he wanted it back, he should get there soon, and he called him a fucking terrorist. Nehru was triggered. The defeated men were scattered on the ground. Taehyun drank the potion. System informed him that his stamina had increased as well as his magical power. He determined that it was a unique rank potion, and its effect was really on a different league. With Taehyun roaming around the dungeon earlier, it hadn't had much effect on his stats, but the potion, it had increased his stats all at once. Now that he drank it, He doesn't have to worry about the Phoenix Potion getting into the hands of the terrorist. He heard several footsteps. It was Izaki Ryohei and his team. Several corpses lay there, but aside from that, the hall was empty. He wondered if the person who called them had run away, but Ryohei laughed at them. He told them that the person is just right in front of them. He told Taehyun to stop hiding. Taehyun reversed his stealth ability, while commenting how odd it was for them to notice when his ability was perfect. They stood face to face. Ryohei asked what someone like Kim Taehyun's caliber was doing there. Taehyun retorted back to Ryohei that what about the head of security like him who should be running around trying to clean up after the terror attack? Ryohei laughed, and he revealed that there's something he's looking for. Taehyun watched him. He sighed while getting something from his pocket, and he mentioned that he noticed that something was off. First, the fact that the security team couldn't find all those bombs despite having all the players as bodyguards. Taehyun saw the terrorists storming in through the east point where they can't enter without permission, and that led him to think that the terrorists had someone working with them from the inside. But no one would have thought that the head of security would have been the spy. Ryohei replied that he was kind enough to warn Taehyun to stay in his lane. Ryohei disappeared in front of them. Taehyun was alert. When Ryohei showed up, he had already attacked Taehyun. Ryohei demanded Taehyun to hand it over. Taehyun smirked at him and told him to try to take it like a villain should. They continued to fight while Ryohei's subordinates watched them, but the subordinates could barely follow them with their eyes, since the match was intense because of the incredible speed of the two. The ground was shattering. Some of the stuff was sliced too. The subordinate did not even dare to move because they could have been caught up in the battle between S-rankers, so there's no doubt that they'll end up getting chopped into pieces if they carelessly interfere. Taehyun was being pushed back by Ryohei. Taehyun seemed to be having a difficult time. In his head, he's cursing at Ryohei. He also confirmed his suspicions. Unlike him, who only predicts the direction of attack through killing Aryan sound, Ryohei can actually see him. He swung his sword. That caught Taehyun off guard, and Taehyun was slashed right on his chest.
Hey, don't just cut to me. The chief is retelling the story more rhyme.
He groaned as his body bled. Taehyun recognized that even if they are both using stealth, there's such a huge gap in their proficiency. Despite his injury, Taehyun remained standing. He surprised the subordinates when he jumped really high to properly position himself in using his next ability. In his mind, Ryohei is not worthy for him to use the Predation. The subordinates were surprised when they were lifted in the air by the purple smoke. Taehyun's arm turned into rock, and he hit all the subordinates with it. They groaned in pain and fell to the ground. After that, Taehyun looked for Ryohei. He laughed while commenting that it was some awesome judgment that Taehyun showed. Ryohei was on the ceiling. He told Taehyun that it was awesome of him because stealth was weak against wide-range skills. He added that Taehyun is looking for him. He should have used it over his head as well. Then he attacked Taehyun. Taehyun attempted to block the sword with his dagger. Terrorists were patrolling on a quiet hallway, but they immediately ran away when Ryohei and Taehyun emerged from the ceiling. Ryohei's attack was so powerful that it created a hole which dropped them to the lower level. Then Ryohei slashed through the whole room. It caused an explosion, and then he had Taehyun pinned down on the ground with his foot. He positioned his sword right at Taehyun's throat, but he was surprised. When Taehyun wrapped chains on his sword, he was confused about what it was. Taehyun told him that he's a fool. Ryohei cursed while his expression revealed that he's slightly nervous. He realized that Taehyun's skill earlier wasn't meant to find him, but it was for Taehyun to stop him running out of the skill's target range. Taehyun stood up and raised his arm. He asked Ryohei where he plans to run off to. The chains wrapped around Ryohei. That made Ryohei angry. He cursed at Taehyun. With chains wrapped around Taehyun's fist, he delivered a powerful punch at Ryohei's face. It was a powerful attack that created holes on the ground. After a while, Taehyun was able to chain Izaki Ryohei and his subordinates together. Some subordinates looked haggard and tired, while there's also some who are confused and angry. Ryohei was breathing heavily. He cursed at Taehyun. Taehyun replied that he doesn't understand why an S-ranker would do all those shitty things for some money. Ryohei yelled for him to shut up. He blamed Taehyun for ruining his plans. To shut him up, Taehyun stomped on his head, and then he kicked him hard. He told him that he's pretty chatty for a low-life criminal. The subordinates were worried for Royal High. Taehyun demanded info about Narendra Nehru. He informed them that every country's association must have received urgent calls for reinforcements by then, as if a threat. He reminded Royal High that Nehru would be done for once the reinforcements arrived.
Before all this began, I would have had my doubts about Taehyun's strength and whether he would come out on top. But with his ability to assimilate chosen abilities and the 10+ increase in all stats, this current Taehyun is a beast. If you've made it this far, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, as the chief finishes telling us what else happened.
Royal High laughed at the thought of reinforcements. Royal High told Taehyun that he's just a clueless kid. Someone was running fast. The person entered the door. And that caught Ji Jinwai and Go Taewook's attention. The old man who just entered was in panic. He told them something about the reinforcements. He asked what happened to the reinforcements for East Point. This person is the 4 Great Guilds Alchemist's Guildmaster. And S-ranker, C.O. Sanjik, he was in panic as he shared that. Not just their articles are out there for sale, but also countless VIPs had participated. He's worried that the villains will do something bad to those people. Ji Jinwai asked him to calm down. He explained that they had formed a backup force as soon as they heard the terror news. It was a group of elite players with Player Park Sumjin leading them. Sanjik asked why those people haven't left yet. He volunteered his guild's personnel and supplies if that's what is needed. But Ji Jinwai told him that it wasn't the issue that they're facing. Ji Jinwai told him that they had no way to get there. Sanjik was confused. Taewook explained that the terrorists took over the control room for the East Point warp gate and blocked all the warp gates. Sanjik was utterly shocked. Taewook pacified him by telling him that it would be okay. He explained that there are 2 S-rank players at the scene. One of them was Taehyun, who just became an S-rank recently. But there's only 1 S-rank on the terrorist side. That made Taewook think that those 2 can hold out while they reconnect the warp gates. He even thought of the possibility that the 2 S-rank players could take down Narendra Nehru. Another person joined in the conversation and told them that the case would only happen if the opponent was a regular S-rank player. They were surprised to see who it was. It was Taehyun. Back to our MC. Taehyun stood in front of Ryohei. Ryohei asked him if he knew about the skill called Contract with the Devil. Taehyun had no idea, and Ryohei explained that it was the worst of Nehru's skills. He added that by offering sacrifices, depending on the amount and quality, Ryohei Nehru can summon a monster of a certain rank. Taehyun figured out the sacrifices. Ryohei told him that he's right since there's no other available sacrifices. They are pertaining to humans. Yue-young knew about it as well, and when she told the men in the room, they were extremely shocked. Ji Jinwai couldn't even form a sentence. Taewook stated that Narendra Nehru held roughly a few hundred hostages. Sanjik added that on top of that, Nehru is a notorious terrorist who is particularly skilled even among S-rankers, and if someone like him sacrifices 100 people and summons a monster, Yue-young told them that it was exactly what she wanted to point out, that it will cause a catastrophe. Taehyun made Ryohei his punching bag. He called them lunatics. Ryohei laughed at him and told him that Kim Taehyun could have been lucky and defeated him, but he'll never be able to win against Nehru. So Ryohei pushed him to make a choice between begging for his life and watching those innocent hostages be offered as sacrifices, or charge into a fight that he had no chance of winning and die like a dog. Ryohei kept laughing while Taehyun was enraged. The sun was about to set. The building is situated on an isolated island, and the warp gate had been blocked. A subordinate reported to Nehru that Ryohei had lost. The subordinate explained that the whereabouts of Taehyun, who took down Ryohei, were unknown, along with the Phoenix Potion. He asked what they should do. Nehru laughed and said that there's no chance of winning a face-to-face fight. So Taehyun had been waiting for the association's reinforcements. However, that will not be enough. This villain then raised his hand and dark smoke enveloped it. Nehru used his ability on some of the people in there. He was about to choke them to death. His strategy was, if Taehyun doesn't show up, he'll drag him out. The woman who had been choked was in a sorry state. Nehru announced the beginning of the festival for their god. But then, he noticed something. There was a blackout. The terrorists were confused since all the bombs were blasted ages ago, but it did not cause a blackout. But now just all of a sudden, it happened. Nehru was angry. The sacrifice that he was holding earlier had disappeared in a second. Taehyun, in stealth, was behind him. Taehyun's fist was almost on his face. The chains were so close to him, but he was quick to evade it. He had a difficult time, and Taehyun thought that he had got him. But the chains were diffused. A snake had appeared. Kim Taehyun was taken aback. Nehru had several snakes around him and several fireballs too. There was a big explosion. Fortunately, Taehyun had escaped that.
If you're finding this story engaging, feel free to drop a comment below. I'd love to discuss the unfolding narrative and hear your thoughts. And if you're enjoying the tales shared, don't forget to hit that like button. For more captivating stories like this, simply click on any of the links by my side, and together, let's dive into more immersive worlds. Your feedback and interaction make this journey all the more exciting.